Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Today we have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover, so we're just going to dive right into these topics, starting with Dead Space Remake, which has officially released today. So let me know down in the comments below if you picked up Dead Space Remake or if you're planning to do so. It has been confirmed that this game does take advantage of the PS5's DualSense features. Reading from PlayStation Universe, Dead Space Remake developer EA Motive has revealed more details about how the PS5's DualSense haptic feedback and adaptive triggers have been implemented into the sci-fi survival horror title. Speaking on the PlayStation blog, Motive senior brand manager Vincent Wang revealed that the team wanted to make every weapon feel unique to further immerse players when engaging in combat. The post gives examples for different weapons, such as the plasma cutter, which gives off a distinct vibration after you fire it, and then the trigger pushes back up to prepare you for the next shot. On the flip side, the pulse rifle bucks with each round as you fire off a barrage of ammo at your enemies. Meanwhile, haptic feedback has also been implemented into movement and abilities. For example, players will feel the impact of each step from Isaac's magnetic boots during specific zero-gravity sections, while using the kinesis and stasis modules also offer different immersive feedback. So there you go, just wanted to let you guys know that Dead Space Remake is yet another AAA game that's seemingly going out of their way to really utilize the features of the DualSense, which is something that we usually like to see, right? When it's done well, it's done very well more often than not. So there you go. We are moving on to the next topic, though, which talks about another big AAA game that's coming to PS5 very soon, that being Hogwarts Legacy. We now have official confirmation on how long it's going to take to complete this game. Coming from PlayStation Lifestyle, you can expect to spend a significant amount of time exploring the vast, magical world of Hogwarts Legacy. In fact, it might take longer to beat it than many players anticipated. Speaking with Game Reactor, Hogwarts Legacy's lead designer Kelly Murphy said the game's length is difficult to estimate due to different playstyles. He estimates that you can spend about 40 hours or more on a first-time playthrough of the main story alone. However, if you choose to complete all of the side quests and explore every nook and cranny of the game, the total playtime can reach well over 100 hours. This lines up with rumors that were making the rounds over the last couple of weeks. It's worth noting that even the game's developers, who have been working on Hogwarts Legacy for 6 years, have not seen every part of the game. Murphy stated that he hasn't discovered parts of Hogwarts despite his extensive time on the project. This just goes to show the level of detail and depth that has been put into this game. So yeah, I had to let you guys know about this because we're getting a lot more information about Hogwarts Legacy from different outlets, different creators. I've seen that people are even able to go hands-on, and the general consensus is that, yeah, this game is living up to the hype. It's turning out to be the game that everybody wanted it to be, and to hear that there's just so much content there, I think is really reassuring to people who are looking forward to this game. Because if there's one thing that I get the sense of here with Hogwarts Legacy, it's that people really want to get lost in this game and spend a lot of time with it. So it seems like it's going to be very easy to do that. Let me know your thoughts on that. We're moving on to the next topic, which talks about the Dualsense Edge. Reading from Push Square, they say the Dualsense Edge, Sony's official pro controller for the PS5, hits store shelves today, and it's already being dragged online for its downscaled battery. As reported by Bud's Controllers on Twitter, the premium pad, which retails for $200 US, actually has a smaller battery than the standard DualSense. Now, smaller batteries don't always mean a shorter battery life. It all depends on what kind of battery we're talking about and how it's utilized, but freshly published DualSense Edge reviews suggest that this controller doesn't last long when you're unplugged. The standard DualSense has already faced a lot of criticism for its own relatively short battery life. On average, a full charge will result in about 8 hours of use, give or take, but this total can decrease quite dramatically depending on how a game utilizes the control's features, such as haptic feedback. The issue then is that the DualSense Edge is averaging roughly 6 hours of use right off the bat. This is what we found in our own DualSense Edge hardware review, and it matches up with what we're hearing from others. So basically, what we've got here is an expensive controller that boasts a shorter battery life than its standard counterpart, and that's a kicker as far as marketing goes. The DualSense Edge is clearly aimed at enthusiasts, but it's kind of a surface-level disappointment that might put a lot of curious onlookers off the product. So, yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing with the DualSense Edge. The reviews are out, and This seems to be like the big issue here. In general, I'd say that a $200 controller for most people is just already like, no thanks, way too much for a controller. But for enthusiasts, it's one of these things where, yeah, I could understand how hearing like 6 hours of battery life, it really, I think, will make a person take a step back and really think about whether or not they're okay with that. But the good news is the controller itself is amazing. All of the reviews that I've been reading and watching are saying that, yeah, this is easily like the best controller Sony's ever made. It's just a shame that it has to have such a small and short battery life, especially when you compare it to the competition. You know, these other premium controllers, they completely destroy the Dualsense Edge here in their battery life. So yeah, it's unfortunate, and you know, it is what it is. So at this point, I'm just kind of curious to see what you guys think. You know, is there anybody who's planning on getting the Dualsense Edge and you just simply don't care about the battery life, or were you thinking about it and now that you're hearing it lasts about 6 to 8 hours, it's not really something you're going to consider now? I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. Next up, we are talking about The Last of Us HBO once again. First and foremost, Season 2 has officially been greenlit. This was announced just today. And so we know with The Last of Us Season 1, it's covering the entirety of the first game. So I guess we can assume that Season 2 will cover the entirety of the second game, but it wouldn't surprise me if they end up making Season 2 something that lasts 2 or 3 seasons potentially, you know, if it can keep the momentum. I mean, you have to imagine that if this show continues to be as successful as it is, HBO is going to want to continue it, and I'm sure PlayStation Productions will want to. But one thing that is worth noting here is Neil Druckmann did make it clear that they have no intention of going beyond what we've seen in the game so far. So they're not going to just go past Season 2, and we're not going to hopefully not see a situation where we end up seeing basically what would be The Last of Us Part 3 happening, you know, on a TV show and not a game. This is something that Neil Druckmann did state. So there you go. Season 2 of The Last of Us for HBO has been greenlit. But it's also worth noting that episode 1 of The Last of Us HBO is now free to watch on YouTube. So this is something you might want to look into. This is coming from HBO Max's UK partner Sky TV. They made episode 1 available free on YouTube. So there you go. Go check it out. No subscription required. And finally, we have another update on how the Last of Us HBO show is affecting sales of the game. Coming from PlayStation Universe, it says Christopher Dring has revealed that sales of The Last of Us Part 1 grew a whopping 305% week-on-week following the launch of The Last of Us HBO, with digital sales now taken into consideration. The boost in sales has now resulted in Naughty Dog's PS5 title reaching the number 11 spot in the charts, while Last of Us Remastered sales rocketed by 337%, reaching number 16. So yeah, this is just kind of a follow-up to what we were talking about. And you know, I would love to get numbers on this. I mean, yeah, the percentages sound great, right? Like a 305% increase. Of course, that's a good thing. There's nothing bad about this, but I'm just genuinely curious as to like how significant are these numbers, right? Like how many copies exactly is this show pushing? I would be interested to get that information. Unfortunately, we're not going to, but either way, I look at it as a win for The Last of Us. But moving on to the final topics of the video, we're once again talking about Naughty Dog, and we're getting some interesting information about what to expect from the future of the studio. And one of the things that we're learning is that Naughty Dog is officially done with Uncharted, and they've moved on. This is reading from PlayStation Lifestyle, where they say Naughty Dog's Neil Druckmann has stated that the developer is done and moving on from the Uncharted series. Those hoping for an Uncharted 5 made by the same developer will be disappointed to learn that Naughty Dog's final brushstroke is done and that there has been no pressure from Sony to make a sequel. So this is a direct quote from Neil Druckmann. For us, Uncharted was insanely successful. Uncharted 4 was one of our best-selling games, and we're able to put our final brushstroke on that story and say that we're done. We're moving on. Now, the context with this is Neil Druckmann was making it clear that Sony does not put pressure on any of their studios, or at least on Naughty Dog, by basically saying like, hey, look at how Uncharted how successful Uncharted 4 was, you guys definitely need to just keep making Uncharted. They let Naughty Dog do whatever they want, whatever they think is best. And I just think that this is really good to hear, because I think that that's always a concern with like publishers, right? I mean, to me, it's kind of obvious that Sony's that way, but it's nice to hear it, you know, out loud coming from one of the heads of the studios, right? So that's good news for Sony. It's maybe unfortunate news for anybody who, you know, is hoping for an Uncharted game from Naughty Dog again. Here's the thing though, Uncharted is not going away. Naughty Dog being done with it just means that we're not getting any more Uncharted games from Naughty Dog, but we know based through multiple job listings that this series is continuing with a different studio underneath PlayStation, and I'm sure we're going to get more information on that in the future. But something else that Neil Druckmann talked about was The Last of Us Part 3 and whether or not it was going to happen. So again, from PlayStation Lifestyle, it says Naughty Dog's Neil Druckmann has revealed that The Last of Us 3, or a sequel with a different name, is not a certainty at the moment, despite the success of the previous games and the ongoing HBO TV series. It will be up to the studio to decide whether they want to continue the franchise, which they will do if they can come up with a compelling story. If Naughty Dog decides not to continue with a sequel like The Last of Us 3, Druckmann feels like The Last of Us 2 had a very strong ending and that it could serve as a conclusion to the franchise. He told BuzzFeed that the only way the franchise would continue is if they can come up with a compelling story that has this universal message and statement about love, and if they can't do this, then the franchise will come to an end. Quote, with The Last of Us, it's up to us whether we want to continue it or not. Our process is the same thing we did when we did Part 2, which is if we can come up with a compelling story that has this universal message and statement about love, just like the first and second game did, then we will tell that story. If we can't come up with something, we have a very strong ending with Part 2, and that will be the end. End quote. So there you go. I mean, I feel like we've been talking about this, you know, a lot lately. We've been talking a lot about Naughty Dog and The Last of Us, because they've been doing a lot of PR, but, you know, this is interesting to me. I almost get this sense, to be honest, I feel like Neil Druckmann is essentially trying to convey that, guys, we are working on something new outside of Uncharted and The Last of Us. And I know that there are people that say, dude, The Last of Us 3 is absolutely happening. And I understand where that comes from, because even I sit here and think, well, yeah, I mean, it seems obvious, right? Like, why wouldn't they? It's a hugely successful game, but we also have to really pay attention to what Neil is saying here. He's making it clear that, like, they're going to do what they want to do, and they might not want to do a part 3, right? Like, I'm sure that they're thrilled to see the success of the HBO show, and, you know, they're thrilled to just see, like, how much love The Last of Us continues to get, but you know, they might genuinely just have a desire to do something new. I think people need to understand that these long development cycles with these AAA games like this, it could take a toll to where, you know, these developers, in order to retain them and, you know, just in general, just for their morale, they might say, look, like, we kind of want to work on something else, you know? And I think that that's something we have to consider. Now, does this mean that we're never going to get a part 3 for Last of Us? No, I don't think so at all. I wouldn't be surprised if this is just Naughty Dog basically taking a little break, right? Just like they did with The Last of Us originally. You know, Uncharted 4 came after The Last of Us. We could see another situation like that happening. But that's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. Be sure to leave it a like if you did. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon. And feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.